Yeah, no, very good. So you can hear the microphone. You switch it on. It's on. It's not very loud. That's all right. Good. Are you ready?
I'm not dead, which is important because this thing is wonky. I think it's a top code. And I said to the guy there, I said, please don't make me die at Untitled Java 2022. Maybe Untitled Java 2030. Yeah, so you're all about to come back. So let me do the introduction and then I'll hand over to Michael for an introduction also. Hi everyone.
If you think about is usually the problem of distributing that data, and how do we get to all these nodes? Because we've all run data out of one single data center, and when someone's getting in India, shitty experience. So, right, I'm allowed to say that. Terrible experience, right? We also need to be highly responsive. We need to, how do we sort of analyze that data? How do we deal with throughput, right? So how do we grow these things, make them bigger? There's issues of latency. So there's all of these things. And Microsoft's sort of solution to this global data problem is really CosmosDB, right? So Azure CosmosDB is a product of sort of different database engines. Okay, so we'll have a look at what those are already. But if we quickly look at our app architecture, we're going to have some sort of front load balancer. We're going to have a whole bunch of apps, which is what Rory would deploy his application to. But we need that database, right? Think about typical database architectures. Each one would have its own instance. How do we replicate that? Now, replication isn't something new, right? Pretty much every database on the planet can do it. Is it easy? No. Okay. Is it cheap? No. It's still not, right? Okay. But it's going to make that sort of experience easy, right? So that's where Azure CosmosDB comes into play. So what's Azure CosmosDB? We mentioned it's this globally distributed thing. So it scales really well. Okay. But it's also multimodal. Okay. And what that means is that it doesn't have a single database engine or a single engine. It's filled with multiple modalities of data. So the simplest version is something like a key value store. Okay, so you've all worked with a key value data.
Hold on, sorry, we're just fixing the speaker here, MacBook Pros, MacBook Pro microphone, and that's everything that we can change.
Okay, continue talking about the slides? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So key value added, so this essentially involves a single key. And then a object that can return. So you think like Redis cache, it does these as well, where you've got a single index. I search on that index, it gives me something back. We can scale it with a complex object. It works really well for these sessions, right? And I get columnar families of databases. These are often big data kind of scenarios. So we bring in a multi-column data, but we also want to store that in a columnar format, because I want to query this data efficiently in a OLAP type fashion. We've also got DocumentDB. Okay, so I think a lot of you will be familiar with those. Obviously, MongoDB is its most common implementation. Then we've got GraphDB. Okay, so when the relationship between objects is more important than the object itself, the graph database might be what you're looking for. Okay, so these are some of the engines that we support, okay, or that Microsoft supports, but it's got a number of APIs that you can use to interact with it. Okay, so the first is the Sql API, and this is the native API in CosmosDB. Okay, so if you're looking for the best experience in CosmosDB out of the box, this is the API that you would use. All right, but because one of the big selling features of CosmosDB is that easy migration. So they want to support a number of APIs on top of that. So we've obviously got Cassandra. Okay, so that's what we use for connecting to our Conda database. We've got MongoDB. We spoke about connecting to documents. The table API. That's for our key value stores. We've got DB, which is that's connected to graph databases. Yeah, and then there's a sort of funny one, which you've actually got JavaScript API, where you can actually write some JavaScript directly against the documents inside. I kind of looked at the documentation myself. I can't speak to that too much. But as of yesterday, so this slide was accurate yesterday, but you might be aware that it's MS Ignite right now. Okay, they're just making announcements. So one of the big announcements from Microsoft is that Postgres is now supported, right? So you can now add Postgres.
As from yesterday.
As from yesterday, right? Okay, so this is really cool. You can now bring in your Postgres database inside this. Now, obviously, yes, you could always set up your own Postgres database. But this is really, 1, 2, 3 clicks, and this thing is deployed globally, right? Okay, so we're talking about ease of deployment, ease of manageability. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is billing, right? Because that's sort of one of the things with service, right? How do we bill for these things? Because if we think about traditional IaaS kind of setups, well, I just pay for the VM that this thing, or the container that this thing's going to run in. How do I pay for a serverless item? And Cosmos uses this idea of a request unit. And a request unit is a measure of effort, okay, which is a blend of CPU, memory, and IOPS. Okay, and one request unit is exactly the amount of effort it takes to get a 1K-bit indexed page out of memory, right? Okay, so that is the definition of one request unit, and all operations would consist of multiple request units on there, right? And then how do you provision that in the service? Well, you go and say, I want this database or this container, whatever it is, to have 10,000 request units per second, right? So that's like a theoretical max. So that's how we determine throughput. Okay. So if we think about what the components are, because it's a slightly, obviously we've got to throw in some Azure idea in there. So the first idea is this account, right? So this account is this, it's ultimately the billing boundary. So it's that thing that you're going to pay for, but it's also the level at which we set an API. So we get to choose one API per Cosmos account, right? So you can't run a MongoDB and Cassandra at the same time. You have to have two separate instances, right? Okay, then we've got databases within there. And databases are logical constructs where we can set throughput if we want to, but we can also define security. Okay, and then you get the container. So the container is kind of like a table, if you will. Okay, obviously this is the NoSQL world, so we don't have tables per se. And then within those containers, we have items. And something important to remember with items is that we've also got this idea of partition. So this is how we horizontally scale data. Okay, so we would define some sort of index using that partition key to limit the amount of data that gets worked with. And this is really important in CosmosDB because you actually have a cap, 10,000 RUs on a single partition. So if you want to scale your data, you need to bring in partition, right? I know it's easy to make a partition ID 1. Okay, it works really well on your PC. Scale is not more. Okay, so that's really the components of CosmosDB. It's also got this idea of consistency models. Okay, so if you guys are familiar with the CAT theorem of distributed computing, you have consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. You can have two. You just can't get all three things. So this is where you get to choose what that blend of items is. So on the sort of left-hand side, we have strong consistency, and that's probably closest to ACID compliance in a relational database. Okay, so this says that everybody will always see exactly the same thing. The problem with this, when we're speaking about a global database, is that every time I commit a transaction, that transaction has to be replicated to all the nodes. Okay, so that can be a very slow operation. So not a good idea if I need to inject a lot of data, but a very important idea if I'm dealing with stock, finances, things like that, where I don't want to accidentally lose some transactions. All right, the next one we'll look at is session. And really, session means that if I look at a consistent view within a session, but other sessions may have slightly different views use this data, has this data replicated around the world. And then finally, the sort of on the other end of the spectrum is this eventual consistency, which kind of says eventually all the nodes will sync up, but there's a good chance that two nodes aren't going to be the same. Typical example of this is something like Twitter. If you ever go into Twitter, you can see there's a number of follows or a number of likes, and you want to see who liked it, and then the list comes up empty. And that's because the one node says that there's 10, the other one says, well, I haven't seen any of that yet. That's what eventual consistency is. Totally cool for things like likes, probably not that important. You're not going to run your back like that, right? Okay. So now to the little marketing slide. So Microsoft would like you to know that they actually back up the performance of CosmosDB quite aggressively. So you get a guarantee on basically all of your transactions, or if it's 99% of your transactions will complete in 10 milliseconds or less. There is a financial guarantee to that. So if they don't meet that, I think if it's 98%, they give you a quarter of your money back. If it's
I'm not personally accountable for that.
Yes, no, the money, I'm probably wrong on the exact amounts, but it is a fairly aggressive. So obviously that is something to think about, and obviously it is highly available. And then obviously for the real marketing slides, so before we kick over to Rory to show us how we're going to build our app, just to finally wrap up CosmosDB. We've got this, we know that data is now sort of distributed globally, and we know that we can interact with it in real time, and because it's globally distributed and real time, it makes it a very good sync for IoT data, okay? So you can inject a lot of that small messages into Cosmos effectively. Obviously, it's got a simplified service architecture, very quick to get going with and get working with. It's also got a good integration to Synapse. So Synapse is Microsoft's analytics platform. It's multimodal, everything's going that way, right? So it's Spark, SQL Compute, all of these things. And it's got this Synapse link, a very easy injection process to move data in. Okay, and then finally, most of the time we can just simply do lift and shift from most of our common platforms. So if you're already running in MongoDB, Sand, or something like that, it should be a fairly simple migration. Hopefully as easy as changing the connections. But we know it's never quite that easy, but most of the time, right? Okay, so that is kind of just a summary of what CosmosDB is. I'm going to hand over to my colleague.
Lovely associate.
My lovely associate. And yeah, he's going to tell us about Spring Cloud.
Okay, so who here is a Spring developer? A Java developer, Spring developer? Please raise your hands very high because we have someone from VMware here and he will find you. Yeah, so Spring is majority of enterprise or system-based development in Java is Spring. And it's been around forever, and I still haven't seen a single organogram that explains Spring because it's just, it's huge. But so we partnered with Pivotal and, VMware, and we created something called Spring Cloud Azure. Not to be confused with Spring Azure Cloud, which we've rebranded. We now call it Spring Cloud Apps, which was very confusing. But what it is, it makes your lives easier. And it is abstraction from the cloud of choice, Azure, and it allows you to access all of the normal features of Azure with little effort. And I know that because all developers should be lazy, impatient, and who knows programming in pills. Lazy, impatience, and hubris, arrogance. So those are brilliant developers. So it allows you to create an abstraction layer on top of Azure SDK, and the demo we're going to show you is going to do that. You still need the Azure SDK. If you want to do funny things like Bitcoin mine on our servers, don't. We've worked it out. You can't make money off it, I've tried. And you can leverage, you get a minimal learning curve, which I'm going to show you here. So you can access this if you want to go into the Azure cloud. aka.ms spring-cloud-azure, and you get everything from zero trust to Spring Cache to integration, relational databases, Spring Data. And today we're going to show you something called CosmosDB, whoop whoop, and which my colleague Michael introduced. And we're going to show you how easy it is to wire everything together. So first, you get auto configuration. It is magic. Now, I try to explain dependency injection to some developers who had never seen it, especially the .NET developers. They can't understand it. But it's like, if you have a car, you want to tell the car what wheels it wants without having to say, change the car. So you can just say, inject those wheels there, put it on a little lift, and then just put the wheels in there. The wheels don't come with the car. They're separate. So in this case here, we have Cosmos. And Cosmos is just floating out there, and we're going to inject Cosmos into our application. So first, you're going to use the Spring Cloud Azure library. You're going to go a dependency in Maven. So Gradle hasn't really won yet, but it's starting to. But this is a Maven project we're going to create. And then you just add your dependency in there. Next, you just add your endpoint. So when you create your CosmosDB database, you're going to get an endpoint, which you're going to share with no one, and you're not going to put it into GitHub, okay? That's a bad no-no. But if you're going to do that, switch on secret sharing, secret scanning on GitHub, and it'll tell you if anyone actually checks into that. That's something that is really nice with GitHub. And then once you do that, you're just going to go at AutoWired, and you create a repository from that. That's it. And then you can use that repository. So you want to know a little bit more before we get into the demo, you can go to aka.ms spring-cloud Azure. So before we get into the actual links here, I'm going to show you this application. But first, because I'm 43, I'm going to make this much bigger because I am going through a midlife crisis. Don't buy a car. Okay, that's the worst thing you can do. So I've got my application here, and you'll get the link to all of this code and a tutorial here. And this is going to create a to-do application. Because like Michael says, who needs another to-do? My to-do actually says bath dogs and bar milk. You always need milk, and I always need a bath for my dogs. I've got two little schnauzers. So I've got my application here, and it is just going to run that application there. And then in that application, I've got a controller. And it is going to auto-wire my repository. And the repository here then is going to have which is going to extend Cosmos repository. Notice here, there's no real mention really of URLs or configs or anything like that. And then in my controller, I'm going to just have some mappings here like home, get, set, you know, the CRUD operations here. And then finally, I've got a little application.properties that I've already kind of set the Cosmos URI key and database inside the system parameters. And then I've got some static, I think this is thumb leaf. I know that VMware loves a thumb leaf. And now I'm going to run this with the Spring extension. So this is very new, and I've partnered with the team, the product team there. So this is very new. You can see there, you've got the apps, so you can actually go there and you can run the app. Then you've got the beans. It's going to do live introspection of your beans there and give you, via the Spring Actuator, views of your application. Every time I show this, people go, does .NET have this? Does Python have this? No one has this, because Spring has the actuator. And then we're going to look at the endpoint mappings there. So we're going to click on, let's go there, debug. So I've got my application. It basically just goes Spring Boot run. I've created my CosmosDB database. We're going to go look at how to replicate that globally after this. Now it's connected to my application, and it is basically just a standard CosmosDB API, and I'm using the Sql API. Now you can see there, it's actually scanning. Well, Law of Demo says it will actually come right, complete initialization in 1 milliseconds. But of course, it might not work. This is what happens when you live demo. Everything kind of takes a while. Let's hit a little bit refresh then. Let's go into the application first while it's taking it some time and actually go in and browse it so I can actually show you what it looks like. So let's go in there while it's taking its time and go there. Let's go localhost 8080. This is the actual application here. Let's make that a little bit bigger. And then I've got a to-do list here. And the to-do list here, I can just add their test. Oh, buy dog food, clean. Okay, if you go to my, I said don't buy a car, and you know, at least I didn't buy a black car. I bought a silver car, which is also a really bad there. So, and then tweet for swag. Okay, remember, we want to tweet for swag. We want to ask you all to actually go there, successfully created. There's a tweet for swag. Let's go back in there and see if the law of demos does not. Okay, let's stop that quickly here. And let's just do this because I really want to show you this quickly. I want to go out of there. Next, I want to go into my Spring To-Do app here. Just open it up again. I actually did log a PR with them to actually fix that. What it does, it hits the actuator and it times out because it's trying to find too many beans. Now, I've got a lot running on my laptop, which might be why it's slowing down a little bit there. But if it doesn't run, we can actually go in and just look at something else. So let's try one more time there. I'm just not going to debug. I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to run the extension there. And we're going to see if that runs through. And of course, it's going to say it is not going to find the localhost 8080. Let's go find this. So let's go in there and we're going to go ps-ef. This is what you do if you grep/i Java. Let's try one more time. ps-ef grep Java. So this is a nice way to actually show you ps, and we want to go grep/i Java. Let's go find that boy and let's violently kill it. Kill/9. Violently kill that boy there. The language app there. We want to kill that big boy there. Else we're going to go into another demo after this. One more time. Let's try that again. And last time there. I just wanted to actually show you the beans there because inside the to-do list controller there is how they actually go in and inject it. Okay, so let's leave that for a second there, and let's go into our second demo. We'll come back to that eventually. So that's the first thing you want to do. You just want to go into your pom.xml, and you want to just add in Azure Spring Starter Cosmos. Now, I've got my application running here, so now I can actually go into my portal here, and this is my application running here. Now, this currently is running in, let's just see where, East US. So say I've got some data that I want to replicate into South Africa. So it's very difficult to do that typically. So look how easy this is. So this is my application. I can just click on South Africa North, and you can actually go enable multi-region rights. And also you can actually go in and specify if you want to use an availability zone. So you save that there. Now my application, I've got not only availability zones, so we've got Cape Town and South Africa each have availability zones, but I've also got the East US data replicating with also reads enabled and writes enabled in my database there. So when I push my to-do application with my to-dos, buy milk, and what was a wash car, it is so dirty. You can actually go through that, and let's actually test it there when we come back there. And the next thing I want to show you is the final demo about this. Now, I need you all to be very quiet about this because this is not live. Now, I spoke to the production team, the actual product team around this, and this is going live next month. Now, what I'm going to show you is the Azure Dev Cli. Has anyone heard of that, the Azure Dev Cli? So you can go in there and you can go Azure Dev Cli. And let's go into here, Azure Dev Cli. Now, the Azure Dev Cli is called AZD and allows you to actually just choose a template. And for example, you just go AZD app to do Node.js Mongo. And it just creates everything, but it creates it with container apps, and also it wires all of your application, including your Mongo with you. So I did that before the session here. I did another little demo here. Let's make it a little bit smaller. So this is what I built while we were talking in the session. So I've got a container registry. I'm building an application, the same to-do application that we did, a little bit different there. It's going to push that container into a container app. That container app then is going to have an API, and then it's going to use Key Vault for securities, and then CosmosDB the same Cosmos DB really that we used in the previous example. And then for monitor, it's going to use Azure Monitor. And all you have to do, and I can show you now, is you go AZD up. Now, this is not a live template. This is going live end of November. And you can just go AZD up, and you can go, and the template name here would be to do Java, Mongo, that. So when I look at this application here, this AZD up here, let's go AZD Monitor. And it's going to bring up the monitor. Now, I'm going to go in and create some test data here. So I'm going to do AZD Monitor. It's going to go in and find out all of the information. And so that's a Microsoft Azure. And when that's finished here, I'm going to create some test data with Playwright. Really have a look at Playwright.dev. It's got Java, Python, .NET APIs. So you can go Playwright test. And then what that's going to do here, it's going to write a little Playwright test here that is going to go in, let me go to the to-do specs here. And the to-do specs there, it's going to just hit that to-do application like we said there. It's going to add text items there, add an item then, and then it's going to hit those container apps views though. So let's go Playwright test here. So it's going to actually hit the web API there that I've got. Now I've got two container apps. I've got a web app, and then I've got a API app. So your web app is typically your static HTML, and then your API app would be your Spring Boot application. So pass there. Now I know that I've got some data here, and we can go see what that application is before we go on to the AZD Monitor here. Let's go source, and in the API here, I've got my POM, which I'm injecting my Spring Cloud Azure, and then I've got a little source application here that is basically just going very similar to do that repository and an API configuration. So let's go into our API map. So this is my application. So I can click on my API map. We added some source files there. And now I should be able to see my API map here. Let's go that a little bit bigger. So this is what happens when you go bigger, but you want to, so over here, I've got my web UI client that I hit. Then I've got my API, my CosmosDB database, my local host, which is testing here. And then I've also got the actual VNet that I'm running in here. So let's go see the CosmosDB database. Now that we know that we're using CosmosDB database, I can actually go and investigate performance. So I can go there, and now I can actually see the actual views that I've got. So I can zoom in there with my Azure there, and I can go say, okay, what happened there? And I can go, cool, what actually happened there? And I can see the speed was improved, and I can go in now and globally distribute it accordingly to the location. So let's go a little bit smaller. And yeah, aggregate insert, that's the insert here. Now I can drill down into those samples, see which one took so long. So if I'm going into the US area, or a CDN, so context distribution network, I can change it. And you can see there, some of them are taking longer or shorter, and it tracks the latency as I progress over there. So you can change the distribution, and you can also change the RU, which Michael explained there, to either open or close the pipe. And there's my my end-to-end transaction. Now I can actually see that I've got the items that ordered, and in this case, it would be an item. And then I've got a full end-to-end transaction flow. And you can actually go see what this did with that test data that we did there, with the get and setter there, as we progress through that. And each one of these, you can go in and see each operation, and then adjust them accordingly with a global distribution. Now, going back to my global distribution, let's see if it's actually finished, my to-do RP, and it is completely finished there. My availability zones are there. Now I'm going to take a lot of risk. Let's go back in there. I want to actually just kill that thing, because I want to finally end off with a good feeling. I'm going to go grep/I add Java, make sure it's dead now again, and that's the language server. That is something else. Boot language server. Let's try one more time. And we'll see if we can do that though, just to give me a nice feeling that Microsoft pays to have my children fed. So let's go into here, and let's go start it. And let's see if we're going to do that. So this is going to hit a global distributed database now. Oh, it did not work. So let's actually go in there and just one more time, and then we can just end off for questions there. So let's go in and let's kill everything actually. Let's go violent, medieval on them, and we're going to go Control C, and we're going to paste that there, and then we're going to go Control C. I have raised this concern with the product group about this. So this is what happens when you run it out of process, the language server. And over there, copy, and we want to do that. Cool. One more time, and then we'll just open for questions. Proceed. No, it's not going to happen to me today. Okay, so it should actually connect to there, but I do have it, and this is a bit of a trick, running on Azure. So now we're going to go into Azure quickly here. So check this out. I did it was a bit of a trick. I'm going to go into app services, that Spring app there. Now we're going to actually check. So here's my application here. So it didn't run locally, and this is what happens when you run everything in your local PC. Now I'm going to go into the to-do applications. I've deployed the actual application onto Azure. I can click through it here. There's my to-do list here, and let's just click here. And now, global distributed across zones there, deployed on Azure, live on air. Don't know what's wrong with my MacBook. It's a Mac. It's not a Microsoft thing there. So I'm not gonna. You know, they're a good buddy for us. We now got Apple Music on Windows. It was announced yesterday. But now it's got there, and we distributed live on the air there. I showed you the developer AZD CLI that you can just do one click there. Have a look at that. I'm going to go back to the slides here, play from current slides. I do feel good that I showed them at the end, just like it kind of works with the global distribution. I just don't know this chunk of aluminium, what's up with it. So you don't have to pay for it. Good news. You can get it for free, no credit card. This was only announced a week ago. No credit card. You need a GitHub account, though, so you can actually go in and try it. So you can go cosmos.azure.com, try it. It gives you 30 days. It gives you whatever account that I use there. You can go in and just use it, though. So this is very good. This is very new, because most of the things that you have there, you have to pay for. And so when I saw this with the product team, I said, give me now. Give me now. And then the to-do tutorial that I showed you there, if you want to go play and you can distribute it to Azure, you can go to aks./cosmo-db-spring. And Michael's going to take questions. I'm going to hand out the T-shirts, and I'm also going to look on the tweeters for the people there with the tweeters. So I'm going to go into Twitter. Please be clean. This is this is my day job. So just no, not dogs. Cornel, you did what? Okay. Okay, Cornel gets, first one I'm hitting here, what we need, Java Africa. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. And the first two people that we get, so Cornel gets one, and let's just see here, and we want to go latest. Can I do, no.
Shirt or?
Cornel gets a shirt, and we want to do Java Africa. Okay, Google, why are you here, Google? Pixel phone, we don't get Pixel phones here. Let's search for a hashtag. Java Africa. We go latest here. Okay, cool. No, you can't get one if you are the conference. Dinio. That's a nice picture of me. I look very tall, which is nice. And then Renette. Yeah, bottle. Just Douglas. And then we're going to leave the rest for questions. How much more stuff?
You've given away all the swag.
Have I?
One question.
Okay, one question. Who's got a question here?
And I'm just thinking about, so if you have this multi-zone replicating right database, but you've lied to my Spring app and said that it's in Postgres, and someone set the transaction isolation layer to serializable. What's going to happen?
So you set you can set it at essentially a database, or the account gets consistency now, for the default consistency now. For each query, you can change consistency to that query. So that's what you're doing, right? You can do that across. I have not played with because obviously it's brand new. It was a complete embargo. They didn't tell anybody.
They didn't even tell me.
We felt very offended when you found out what it was like. But yeah, so it would work, right? In theory.
It's going to come out in preview, so please break it, push a PR, and then feedback.
And that will be part of your, that's a free credit account. You can use any of those engines, right? You don't just have to use like a SQL engine.
Thanks, everyone, and please follow myself and Michael on Twitter, on the tweeters, and thank you so much for supporting Microsoft. This is why you don't.